USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Weekend Review for Monday, April 1st, 2024. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets today. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly and Derek Schooley. It was quite a weekend, and it was an Easter Sunday of seeing the portal start to fill up. Derek, were you watching that?
Well, first of all, happy Easter to everybody. Hopefully they enjoyed hockey this weekend. And now, welcome to Transfer Portal Sunday and Monday. It was almost like free agent tracker in July, trade deadline, you update. I flew to Tampa. My daughter's here for the U.S. National Girls Championship, and I landed, and there was 27 more people had joined the portal. I think 58 total since yesterday at midnight. So it's quite a phenomenon to watch and be involved in. And unfortunately, it's the way of the world that we're living in right now.
Can I just add one thing about that? Would it be impossible to push the date back 2 weeks so that we're actually done hockey? Like, I don't know why this portal has to open like this on the days that teams are still playing. Because for one thing, it's distracting to the teams that are still remaining. You had, going into yesterday, you had 6 teams left. We end up with 4. I mean, it just doesn't. The timing to me, I understand the portal's here to stay, whether you like it or not. But the timing to me is so strange. That's the only word I can use, because you're doing it while some teams are still playing. That is not going to make sense. Football does it too. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's the one thing that just befuddles me. I think that really needs to change.
And we talked about this at the coaches convention. It actually has been pushed back a week. It used to be last year was the Monday after the selection show. So it was pushed back a little bit. I read yesterday a basketball team that's still playing, I think it was Illinois, has had somebody coaching the team, somebody scouting the others, and somebody working the transfer portal. And I agree with you to a point, but I mean, how long are we going to push this back? Because then we roll into our coaches convention, we roll into the summer. Kids have to start finding places. Some have admissions deadlines. There's a lot of different factors. I mean, it is what it is. And this is the world we're living in, and everybody's playing in this game.
Somebody reminded me yesterday of the old Seinfeld episode where Jerry Seinfeld said, "We root for the clothes the players wear."
It's like coaches, you root with your checkbook, not your heart sometimes when your alma mater's playing. So I got that when I played Western Michigan in my first year. You excited to play Western? I said, I'm rooting with my checkbook. That's for sure.
Well, let's go to the regionals that happened this week.
Oh, we have hockey to talk about too?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Okay, cool. What happened?
First of all, let me just say that these were terrific regionals. Last year, you had so many blowouts. This year, some really terrific games. Let's talk about Denver. Denver, who has made their whole living this year on scoring a lot of goals and maybe giving up quite a few too, survived a pair of 2-1 games, a double OT that was a real thriller against UMass on Thursday, and then holding off Cornell on Saturday. And we'll get to Cornell a little bit too, because that was impressive. Denver had not won a game this year when scoring 2 goals or fewer. They did it twice in these regionals.
Yeah, I was in Springfield. For one thing, what a way to start the tournament with that unbelievable game between Denver and UMass. Great atmosphere at the Mass Mutual Center. By the way, a fantastic venue for regionals. Perfect size, about 6,600 both days. Even when UMass and Maine were knocked out, the championship game had a great atmosphere because it still had 4,400 fans. That was a way to open the tournament, though. I really enjoyed that game. UMass locked down Denver's offense, did a fantastic job. And Denver, they had to survive in the second overtime. And their goaltender was fantastic, Matt Davis. the stops he made. He even cramped up at one point in that second overtime, and they had to bring the trainer on the ice, and it looked, oh boy, is he going to be able to stay in the game? But did a little work out there, and they got him back up, and he finished the game. And I think it was about 3-4 minutes later that Denver scored the game winner. I thought that both of those games were very good hockey games. Cornell, they played fantastic throughout that 2-game set. Really stressed out Maine, held the Nadeau brothers really off the board, didn't even make them look like they were part of the game. Their defense, as good as any Mike Schaefer coach team I have seen in recent years. This was the team I honestly thought, once they got through Maine and the way that they were playing early on Saturday, I thought that this was the team that was going to break that streak and get Cornell back to the Frozen Four for the first time in a couple of decades. And unfortunately for them, they fell just short. They had some great opportunities. There was a save that Davis had to make with about 6 seconds left in regulation. He got his right toe on it. But great hockey out there. And again, I'll tell you, that was a fantastic venue. I hope they go back to Springfield again.
Yeah, we had talked leading up to this in previous shows. If Cornell gets in, they're going to be somebody that's dangerous. And I was shocked, and I knew it because I was there about the time that it's been since 2003 since Cornell got into a Frozen Four. And you would think with all the success that they have been there numerous times, but they hadn't. And I really, like you, thought that this was the time, especially after, the way they came back and they won in Lake Placid, the way they handled Maine in the first game, and then they got the quick lead. I thought this was it, especially with Ian, Shane, and net. They just couldn't bury that extra chance to extend the lead when it was 1-0. And then they had a few wide open. They had a wide open net. I think it was Castagna, with about 3 minutes left, where it kind of rolled and he missed it. And then the one-timer coming out of the penalty box with maybe about 5 seconds left that goalie slid across, made a great save Davis did to send Denver into the next Frozen Four. I don't know what David Carl, 5 of 6, 4 of 5, something like that. I mean, it's impressive. But like you said, that was a really good and well-played regional, a lot of drama, a lot of close games. I think that's everything that we could ask for. And like you said, in an opening of the tournament and a regional, because there was everything there.
Now we expect more of a typical Denver game, I guess, when they play BU, as both of those teams can really score. But Denver showed it can play either kind of game, and that really bodes well for them heading to St. Paul for sure.
I think so. I don't expect a game against BU to be similar to either of these 2 games that they saw this past week. It's just too different of a team. They won't have to face that neutral zone structure that both UMass and Cornell put in front of them.
Well, let's talk about BU. They rallied from down 2-0 in the game against Minnesota to win over the Golden Gophers 6-3 after beating RIT by an exact same score on Thursday. Macklin Celebrini had 5 points on the weekend in the regional, a goal and 4 assists, including that impressive one on BU's third goal on Saturday. Hobey voting is happening today. We're going to talk a little bit more about Hobey in the second segment, but did he make a really good case for the Hobey Baker voters? And now let me preface that by saying the Hobey committee has a conference call this afternoon, and votes are due on Tuesday, tomorrow by noon Central Time. So this past weekend is going to be very fresh in the minds of the Hobey voters.
Yeah, I think that's something that players that are continuing to play really could take advantage of. And you saw the propaganda with all the goals and all the and let's call a spade a spade. He's a 06 birthday. He could still be in high school almost. And really what he has done has been outstanding. And you look at people like that have done that in Paul Correa and Jack Eichel. I think those are the only freshmen that have come through and been player of the year. And then they both won the Hobey as well. So I think that this is something that will be fresh in everybody's mind. The way BU did it, especially, I really thought the RIT game was a good game, 3-2. And if RIT could have just got through that period, that would have been a big feather in their cap. But, it's tough to chase them down because you have to open up your game as well, and which leads into a track meet for them. I don't think they want to play as much in their own end. They want to go on offense. You saw that against Minnesota, coming back from down 2-0. Jackson Nelson had an unbelievable weekend for the Gophers. And here we are with BU advancing, probably one of the teams that everybody thought would be advancing. But the depth that they have is going to be something to watch in the Frozen Four.
I mean, once you get behind this BU team, I think it's tough. And obviously RIT battled back nicely. But as you said, that I think that late goal in the second period hurt a lot. But once you got into that championship game, I did not think that once BU fell behind, I didn't think they had a chance. And then a good bounce for the Terriers. One goes off, I don't know if we couldn't tell if it was a stick or a skate of a defenseman. Surprise, Justin Close goes in. And you what was a 2-0 game, just seconds later was 2-1. And next thing you know, BU's tied it. BU's taken the lead. They've given the lead back. I mean, that was a back and forth game before BU finally got that 4-3 lead. I think it was late in the second, then put on the 2 empty netters. They locked it down, I thought, in the third period. They played a great defensive third period. Minnesota pushed a lot, but didn't really get the chances that they wanted. So that shows that as much as we talk about this BU offense, when they need to, and when they're playing with the lead, they're much more difficult because they can lock down and they can close out these games.
Well, how about BC? Now, Michigan Tech, some credit to them. They hung on. They kept being pesky, made it a 1-1 game through a couple of periods, and then BC rolled to win 6-1 in the semis. And then how about that game against Quinnipiac? Once BC was down 2-0, it started to feel like, oh boy, maybe we got an upset here. They battled back a couple of times, got the goal to tie it, and then led for the only time in the game when the buzzer sounded, a 5-4 overtime win. Let's talk about that a little bit, and especially Ryan Leonard.
It was fun to watch. I'll give you my impression, but you'll probably take 8 or 9 of my points. Then I'll have nothing to say. So you lead the way.
Well, Leonard, I mean, he earned the MVP tag from that regional, and that was a heck of a weekend for him. I'll go back to that Michigan Tech game first. Michigan Tech forced mistakes from BC. They didn't do it. I thought that if Michigan Tech would hang in it, they'd have to play this physical, grinding, bang it out game. But they were just trying to keep up with BC, and they, a lot of sticks in lanes, stealing pucks, turning pucks over. They really made life miserable for BC. But I think BC also looked nervous in the early points of that game. Once they got their offense going, that third period, then it becomes the Harlem Globetrotters on ice, and they were making these fancy plays. Sunday's game, unbelievable. You can say that the game kind of did turn on some power plays. BC with 2 power play goals in that one, Quinnipiac with 1. I didn't think that BC had the ability to come back when they went down 4-3. I think it was 16 seconds into the third period. It was such an early goal. But that's what BC does. Quinnipiac made exactly one mistake, I think, in the third period. And that turnover led to the Aaron Manetian goal to tie the game. And then once you get into overtime, bounces happen. The puck, I thought Duplessis had a very good game. Puck hits him. He loses track of it. Quinnipiac player sweeps at it, goes right to the stick of Jack Malone, who buries it. And that's sometimes, and I go back, I keep referencing that Maine team from 1993. And sometimes you get into those games and you need some good bounces. And Maine went through some really tight games throughout that NCAA tournament back in 1993, surviving in overtime against Michigan, a 2-goal comeback in the third period against Lake Superior State. Those are the types of games you have to survive sometimes if you're going to win a national championship. And we'll see what that does for BC's confidence as they head to St. Paul.
And you know what? The one thing I was going to say about Michigan Tech that you said very, very well is Michigan Tech was above the puck in a lot of scenarios. They did a lot of good things to make sure that they were putting themselves in the right spots. They weren't giving up a lot. They were playing physical. But once BC got the lead, it's another one of those things where you have to open your game up a little bit and you have to take some chances. And when you have to take chances, that's the kiss of death for some of those teams, because that's what Boston College wants. They want to be able to make the plays. They want to be able to do things like that. So I really think that Michigan Tech did everything they could do to be successful. And I don't think that was a 6-1 hockey game, quite honestly, either. Going through the championship game, first of all, Wisconsin, that was a great hockey game. You didn't really touch on that, but another one that goes down to the wire and goes to a overtime. Quinnipiac just continues to play overtime games. And when Quinnipiac scored to make it 4-3, you kind of felt like they were just going to do their 1-1-3. They weren't going to give up much. And that turnover cost them, because they made a play in transition and they capitalized on it. But Quinnipiac, once again, has a face-off play to open up a period that they go down and score on. 14 seconds on the power play. We had deja vu a little bit for the Minnesota game. And here we are, and you go to overtime, and like you said, a bounce here or there, and they got the bounce. And it's the old case of survive in advance. You heard that in basketball, and North Carolina State, if they wouldn't have hit if a guy wouldn't have missed a free throw in the ACC semifinals to put them up 4, and then they hit the 3 to tie it, they wouldn't be in the Final Four in basketball. So I really think that they did what they needed to do, and they're moving on. And it's the right outcome, but it was hard for them.
Let's go to the fourth regional. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the regional before we talk about the terrific hockey that was played. There was a lot of criticism about Centene Community Ice Center, 2,500 seats. They expanded it to fit around 3,200. Some terrific hockey was played there, but it looked a little weird to me to see empty seats on TV in an arena that everybody complained didn't have enough room. Now, I know you've got you've got teams like North Dakota who are out, and some of those fans may not have come back and things like that, but that looked a little weird. Did that regional end up vindicating the committee in their selection of that location?
Yeah, I think it did. The atmosphere there, the noise, and how enthusiastic that crowd was outstanding. And you're going to have that watching the Frozen Four in the first game. The other team's fans aren't going to be in the corners. So you're going to have open seats because the other team's fans aren't there yet. And then when the one game's over, the other team's fans leave. And then you got to go on the secondary market and fill those seats. So it's going to happen in every building. The fans just aren't going to, they start filling up halfway through the game. And that building was rocking, especially at the end of the Western Michigan game. And I really feel bad for Western. They had Michigan State where they wanted, and they gave up the 2 late goals, especially the one in the last minute. And I thought this was going to be Western's time to get to the Frozen Four and for the first time ever. But Michigan State outlasted them. And then you got another great game between Michigan and North Dakota, and another good final. And I think when you play 6 times, you find out who the best team is probably in the last time, because it's usually when you get that many, it's for an elimination game. And Michigan won the game that they needed to win. And back to your original question, yeah, the committee that picked that regional did get vindicated. They did a great job on that. Great job, Steve Metcalf. Who else was on that committee? Oh, wait, never mind.
I have to say that there was something about that small arena I really liked. And I know that people are going to bitch about, oh, there wasn't enough tickets and we didn't get to go, whatever. People are also going to bitch when there's 1,800 fans in a 10,000 seat arena because there wasn't a nearby team. It's happened. We've seen it. Allentown, when Penn State doesn't make it, is a nightmare. Sioux Falls was not bad without North Dakota. With them having to get shipped out of town, still was the lowest percentage capacity of the regionals this weekend. I don't mind this. You just don't have enough of them. You don't have, I really can't stress how much I thought that Mass Mutual was the perfect size venue for a regional. 60, I think it's 65, 6,600 seats. I tweeted it out the other day on Saturday. It really is the ideal number. 10 to 14,000 is really hard to fill. So you saw it in Providence yesterday. I thought that atmosphere was great, and it did seem most of the fans sat in the lowest bowl, the closest to the ice. And then kind of kept moving up a little bit. But, toward the top, if you saw a side view or a slash view from the slash camera and you see most of the arena, you'd see, thousands of empty seats at the top. That's too big of a building. Maybe Centene is a tiny bit small, but I would rather create this unbelievable atmosphere. And yes, your point about a couple of empty seats here and there, Ed, last night seems strange, but if I'm a fan and I paid $50 for that seat, and I know what the demand was, I want to try to sell it for $1,000. And I'll wait right up until game time to do it. If I don't, oh well, I lose my $50. And that's, I think, why you had some empty seats in there. But the number, I think they announced 32 something on Friday. The number yesterday had to be around that. Just pulling it up as we speak. The number yesterday was 3148. So you had about 70 less fans yesterday than you did on Friday. Unreal though. I love that atmosphere. So my point is, if you're going to regionals, find these smaller buildings. And I'm going to make one other case. I don't think it's a bad thing if these smaller buildings are on campus. I don't mind going back to Notre Dame and seeing a regional. I don't mind somebody like Boston College or Boston University hosting the regionals. I don't mind Minnesota 3M Arena. That's a big arena. But if you get Minnesota, and you have so many Minnesota teams, if you get them in there, they'll fill it. The whole thing of having to have a purely neutral site. Listen, this was one of them was what did we have? We had AIC's home building was used this weekend.
Right.
We had Augustana's home building. Correct? Was it?
No, that's not their home building.
They played some games there though. They played their first half of the year there.
Right.
So, I mean, you've used some buildings that teams actually do play in.
Right.
Just think about 5,000 to 6,000 seats. That is the perfect size for these regionals. If we're going to stay in regionals.
But I'll take you to the other side though. Everybody's heard David Carl and we year after year, and we knew it was coming. And you knew it was coming from some of the blue bloods, as we'd say. But I will tell you this, everybody has a chance to bid, and everybody's got a building. Denver's hosted in Loveland, Colorado numerous times. So everybody does have the chance to bid. There just aren't enough of those buildings west of the Mississippi for the Midwest and the West Regional. And that's what it comes down to. And that's why you see Loveland. That's why you see Sioux Falls. That's why you see the Centene Center this week. And then you're going to see, I guarantee you, sooner or later, Ralph Engelstad's going to bid and stop going to Fargo. They're going to bid on it, like you said. So I think you can make it, like, I don't mind what you said, Jimmy. Have it at Notre Dame, have it at Ralph Engelstad, have it at on somebody's campus, as long as they bid. That's the thing. Nobody's bid. Put it in the committee's hands to make a decision on if they want to put it on a campus or not, but bid.
Yeah, I think the fact that they have shied so far away from the possibility of campus sites, forces teams to not bid. So that's one of those things that just kind of sticks out there. I bet we want to talk about the hockey though, right, Ed?
You went off of nowhere. You didn't even talk hockey there.
I know I took us a little off track there, but how about Michigan? Now I'm going to say 3 comebacks for Michigan. The first one was in February when it looked like they might not even make the tournament, and they were right around the bubble and maybe below for a little bit. They score 3 in the third Friday to beat North Dakota 4-3. They score 4 in the third period to beat Michigan State yesterday 5-2. Michigan had lost 4 out of 5 to Michigan State before Sunday, and now they're back in the Frozen Four for the 3rd year in a row, 2 of them under head coach Brandon Naurato. What a terrific weekend for the Wolverines. And, you just felt it watching Sunday's game that the momentum was building in their direction.
Yeah, I mean, I I look at this Michigan team, and they have seen like this never say die club, and that's what you need to get in. And it's experience too, right? It's almost kind of like Denver. Yes, they were knocked out last year by Cornell, but they've made the Frozen Four pretty much, perennially. I mean, you expect a team in the Frozen Four. It's Denver right now. Same thing goes for Michigan. Now the question is, can they get to the national title game? That has been their biggest challenge. They're going to have to beat the number one team in the country. But I also want to highlight, that was a really close game when Dylan Dukes scored with about 7 minutes left to give Michigan the lead. And then it was 10 seconds, 12 seconds later, I think. The pass that Frank Nazer
makes, oh my God, what a play.
To Gavin Brindley will go down as one of the best setups we've ever seen in an NCAA tournament game. Right off a center ice faceoff, comes in and makes this pass between his legs to a wide open Brindley, who then puts it home. And that was it. Game was over. I started, writing tweets and all that stuff and preparing stuff for the Frozen Four because we had the final team. There was no way Michigan State was coming back. I did feel for Adam Nightingale watching him on the bench. He looked helpless. But that is what a great team can do. And that is what Michigan did on Sunday night.
That was the nail in the coffin, that play, like you said. And what a play. That will go down as one of the plays. If that's not SportsCenter top play of the weekend, I don't know what is. But like you said, 2 back-to-back Brandon Arato's first 2 years as a coach, one as an interim, now back-to-back Frozen Fours. Let's see if they can finally get over the hump. We talked about Cornell earlier. Can Michigan get over the hump and beat one of the Hockey East teams that are supposed to win? I know that the Hockey East fans are drooling for a BC-BU matchup, but I have a feeling that somebody's going to play spoiler out at the Frozen Four. But we did have 3 number 1 seeds make it. We weren't right on our over-under.
Almost 4. Almost 4.
We weren't even close. We were under, Ed. Me and you were under.
I think I said over. I think I went with the over 2.5, but we almost had 4. Michigan State had the lead in that game, and it was a 2-2 game very late. So you never. I was sitting there saying, "Boy, are we finally going to get all 4 number 1s through?"
And we didn't.
And we didn't. We're going to take a break and come back and talk about the Hobey and the Richter. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Where are my hockey fans at? Present. Welcome to Fandom 101. It's NCAA Ice Hockey Championship time, when the hottest teams in the country face off under one roof. Be there to see your squad hoist the ultimate trophy overhead. The NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th in St. Paul, Minnesota. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Class dismissed.
The Hobey Baker Committee is going to vote on Tuesday, submit ballots electronically, and they'll discuss players today. How much does this impact the performance over the weekend? How much is that going to impact the voters? I mean, Macklin Celebrini and Lane Hudson from BU. We've got BCE's Cutter Gauthier and Will Smith. Jack Devine also reached the Frozen Four. How much does that impact things? And conversely, how much did Jackson Blake hurt his cause? He got a goal versus Michigan, but the Fighting Hawks are not in the Frozen Four. How much does that influence the outcome of the Hobey?
I mean, I've spent 6 years on the committee, 2 separate 3-year periods. And I hate to say it, but you do really get influenced by a recency bias, whether it's just this weekend alone or maybe the conference tournament plus this weekend. People want to see how the best players perform in the biggest games. So when your team's not even in those big games, like I think of, some of the years that, I know Northeastern had a goaltender that was in there. I think Caden Primo was in there, and they really didn't. I don't know if they maybe missed the tournament or they were knocked out in one game. And, you remember those things, and you don't have, as you said, Ed, the committee's going to hop on a call today, and they're going to, have to go through the the pluses and minuses of all 10 candidates. And it's sometimes very difficult to make a case for a player whose season is ended this weekend, ended a week ago, ended 2 weeks ago. I look at McClinsky, who's a fantastic player at Holy Cross. He's been done for, a few weeks now. But I'm not taking anything away from the player, but the committee kind of has to think about that, and it goes through their head. So I do think that if you reach the Frozen Four, it really does help your case. Of those players, all of them have unbelievable stats that you mentioned. Celebrini, Lane Hudson, Gauthier, Smith, Devine, all have great numbers. And all of them in some way played a role this weekend helping their team advance.
People have asked me, how much does it impact when you have two players from the same team, which you have with Celebrini and Hudson and Gauthier and Smith?
It can be difficult. You can split some votes. But I think at the same time, voters know which players are the more qualified. I think Lane Hudson's a fantastic player. Celebrini's just had such a season that I think he takes the vote from a BU team perspective. Gauthier and Smith, that's one that could split. They've both been fantastic. Gauthier with goals, Smith with points. So you can split the vote. Now we've seen it before, where you have really three great candidates, one from one team, two from another, and those two sometimes it's hard to choose between the two.
Yeah, a lot of people have their minds somewhat made up by this weekend. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't been on this committee, but I've been on a lot of them. You've got your idea who you're trying to decide. You've probably got your final three, and then you're watching to see how they perform in the big stage and where they go with things. So I really think that you asked the question of, is it going to be influenced by the weekend? Yeah, it is. I think wins help and your performance helps. And the better you can play, the more your stock rises. And I think that those are the things that people don't understand is so it's done now. The Frozen Four won't matter for the Hobey. It's done. But the coaches vote first. The coaches nominate 3 players from their league and 3 players that they've seen on the national level. Then you get then there's obviously the All-American ballots the coaches get. They do a lot of it, but there's this committee that's going to decide, which has media, which has coaches, which has sports information directors, a lot of different people, and they're going to make the decision here. And they're going to get on a call today, and there'll be politicking coming from every which way. I mean, you've been there, Jimmy. Tell me how. I mean, somebody gets on their soapbox can influence the vote one way or the other, right?
I've seen people try, and sometimes it's people that you don't expect to do it. I can remember years ago there was an NHL scout that really didn't like one of the players. The player ended up winning the Hobey still, but he absolutely ripped him on the call. And you'll see those types of things, but you'll also, for the most part, it's relatively positive discussion. It's not a lot of, oh, don't vote for this guy. It's more, here's the reason. The tough thing is I always find is there's some players that are just underrepresented because maybe you have somebody that's a little shy from that league that doesn't, speak up for them. That's one thing I never liked that much about the call, and I didn't put too much merit into everything that was said on it. But it's a good discussion. It certainly is.
Full disclosure, this is my second year in my second 3-year term on the committee. So I'm not going to really weigh in on this because I don't want to sound like I'm being influenced or influencing anything. But yeah, the only other thing I'd add is there are also officials from all the 6 leagues who are represented on there too. So you have scouts, officials, broadcast and print media, and coaches all involved in this committee of, I think it's 27 who will cast ballots. The top 3 are going to be announced, but this is the last voting. So whoever wins is not chosen from the top 3.
Correct.
The winner is already chosen. And I think they went to the hat trick so you don't have things like everybody knowing it's Chris Drury and things like that, like happened in Boston a bazillion years ago. Let's turn to the Richter Award. Final voting happening there too.
It's the ballots are due at 5:00 today. I already have mine in. I've been on the committee for a couple of years, but the ballots are due. But you are in this case only voting among three players, the three finalists who are Jacob Fowler, Kyle McClellan, Caden Mbarico. So that vote, most people I'm sure have probably sent it in. The ballot came out last night around 10:30. So you've probably got your ballot in. There's no discussion of this one. You just have to make a decision on your own based on your eyeballs and some stats that you get paired with.
Let me ask you this real quick. And McClellan's a Hobey finalist. I mean, and I always love this on voting because I've had guys that we've had our team votes before, and we've had our MVP not be our offensive player of the year when it's a forward.
Right.
Wouldn't this lead with him being the Hobey? Wouldn't he be the outside Hobey candidate? Wouldn't he be an outside? Shouldn't he be the one who wins it?
Maybe he didn't. I mean, full disclosure, he didn't get my vote. I was a little bit influenced by what happened in the regionals, and in the Big Ten tournament. Fantastic goaltender, no doubt. But I also look at Jacob Fowler as a winner, a guy that has now set the single season wins mark in the NCAA with 31. That's pretty impressive to me. So yeah, I mean, but don't forget when you're setting the top 10 in the Richter, when you're setting top 10 in the Hobey, you're doing that, a few weeks ahead, and there's still a lot of hockey to be played. It's why I personally would love, and I know that it doesn't work out logistically. I'd love to have all of these votes as late as possible. So I actually like the way Hobey does it. You can't get much later than this. There's only 3 games left to be played. So you're taking into account all but 3 games, or for any team, 2 games. So I guess that's as fair as you can make it. I feel like in the old days, like some of these awards were voted on. Let's go back to the first Richter. It's won by Connor Hellebuck. And he wasn't even a top 10 Hobey candidate because when the Hobey candidates were made long before that, he hadn't had some of his best games. And then he ends up winning the Richter.
And the reason I asked you that was because that's what everybody thinks, right? That you would think that's the natural progression. So I saw that online. That's why I kind of threw that out there, that softball for you there.
Although we did go through a stretch where you either had to have Ryan Miller numbers or you couldn't even be considered for the Hobey. Yeah. So I think there was that whole stretch there, and maybe Hellebuck was a little bit of a victim of that too. But with the Richter, so you've got Fowler, who set the record, passing Al Montoya, Michigan, great in that. He's still playing. So then you get Kyle McClellan losing in overtime. His season's done. Caden Mbarico, probably it would be hard to dispute him as the MVP of that Colorado College team that missed the tournament by 10 thousandths of a point in the RPI. It's got to hurt McClellan and Mbarico just because they're done.
I think it does, and again, there's a lot of recency bias when you got it. If we were forced to pick this back before the conference tournament, you're just using the regular season as a voting margin, kind of like what the NHL does. It's probably Mbarico, no doubt. Maybe it's McClellan, and the third guy would probably be Fowler. Now I think that list might have just switched, and I think it's Fowler, then it's probably McClellan, then it's probably Mbarico.
This is our last Monday edition of our podcast, but we're going to be live with 4 shows in St. Paul, Minnesota. Wednesday from 4 to 6 Central, Thursday noon to 2 Central Time, Friday 6 to 7 as we look at the award announcements, and Saturday 2 to 4 Central Time. The Thursdays and Saturdays we'll be doing a lot of previews of the game that day. All shows are going to be at Tom Reed's Hockey City Pub. We were there last time the Frozen Four was in St. Paul. Had a terrific time. We're really looking forward to it and hope some folks stop by and say hi.
What a great place. The energy in that building is going to be off the charts. If the Gophers would have been there, it would have been unbelievable. But that Tom Reed's is an awesome place. We'll be right in the heart of the action. I just think that we should do another couple hours. Why are we limiting us? Let's just go on the whole week. Let's have a camera follow us.
Yeah, you know what? You might be ready for some camera time, Schools, and we'll get you some FaceTime there. But No, 7 hours is plenty with what we're doing the rest of the week. But I hope people do come on down to Tom Reed's. Great, as Ed said, great atmosphere in that place. It's such a fantastic place to enjoy a meal and a drink before the game on the off days, whatever it might be.
And we're going to be talking to all kinds of people, writers who cover all the different teams, people from College Hockey Inc., the commissioners of the various conferences. We'll be updating you on a lot of that and plus previewing the games. It's always a lot of fun, whether you make it to St. Paul or you're listening at home. Well, with that, we'll wrap up. This is the final Monday edition, as I said, for this season of Weekend Review. It's been sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets today. For Jim Connelly, for Derek Schooley, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO Weekend Review.